recording. You'll get a little window on your computer that says, yeah, it's okay. We do add these to our YouTube channel, which aren't publicly searchable, but you can access the United Church of Christ YouTube channel, and then you can find these. We wanted to record them for folks that aren't available on Wednesday afternoons that might be interested in whatever topic it is we're covering. But today, because it's the fourth Wednesday, this is the Wednesday every month where we talk about updates on the conference updates, news conference-wide, things we have going on. There's not, for like my entire tenure, this is probably the Wednesday where there's least new information to share. So start be thinking of your questions, and that'll fill our time. John Prane?
Molly, are you rejoicing or complaining?
I'm not complaining yet. If it stays at this pace, I'm going to get bored, but it's nice to have a little breather and just to know that things are going well. Our end of the year financials came out great. I talked about those last month. We took a pause on money matters for several weeks over the holidays and into the beginning of the year, but that is ramping back up. A couple of things going out on that. We're not quite ready to close out the books for 2021 because there were still a handful of items to clean up, and we're making progress on those. And every time FAB meets, we're that much closer. It's really good, but not quite ready to completely close the books. So as soon as we close them, we'll have those reports sent out and made available to anybody. But because there's still some questions and still some details that are sorting out, we do know that we ended the year with a lot less deficit than we had budgeted. We budgeted about a $300,000 deficit, ended up with a 5-digit deficit instead of a 6-digit deficit. And even then it was income was up 10%. OCWM was up 10% from the year before. Expenses were down. There were some things that, because we were restructuring, that we had forgotten, like we didn't budget at all for insurance. And so there were some areas in the budget where we were so far over budget, but our personnel expenses were $100,000 under budget. So the changes that we've made have really made a big difference in the functionality and in the financial situation for the conference. We do have a newly elected treasurer. So Ernie Potter, we celebrate and give just immense gratitude for Ernie and all he's done. He served as treasurer for the 2 years of dramatic cleanup and transformation in conference finances. And without his service, we would not be where we are today. So just heartfelt gratitude for Ernie and all he's done. Also grateful for Christine Vesely, who's a member of Pilgrim Oak Park, who has stepped in and accepted the role of treasurer for the coming term, for the term starting last November. And she's onboarding and getting her sea legs, so to speak. See how many mixed metaphors I can bring out. But she's coming on board, and we're excited about what she's going to bring to the table too in the next phase of our our path towards exceptional financial stewardship. Also, staff-wise, every week you've been getting to meet our staff individually and hear about what they're doing and about their lives a little bit. And I hope you've been enjoying those. And those will continue through the month of March as well. Stephanie is getting settled. She has just to remind everybody, sort of her onboarding schedule as our new transitional associate conference minister. She started the last week in January and had about a week to train and figure out what was going on. And then the first half of February was working on picking up the doing really good handoffs for all of the transitions for the pastoral transitions. So search and call, interims, all that kind of stuff. For Eastern, Western, and Prairie, the second half of February, she's starting to pick up Fox Valley and CMA, and that's for pastoral transitions. And then coming the 1st of March, she'll be picking up her responsibilities for pastoral care for Eastern and Fox Valley. And that'll take a couple of weeks to make that transition as well. So all told, about a 6-week transition to get her up to speed, and not trying to put everything on her plate all on the same day, but letting her feast over a season. Kathy and Terrell are also keeping busy. Kathy has picked up all 5 committees on ministry, and she's still providing pastoral care support to Eastern, Western, and Prairie. Once Stephanie picks up Eastern, then Kathy will just be working with Western and Prairie. Although I'll remind you all that our commitment was to make the changes for the structural changes to the ACM jobs around the functional parts of their job. So Stephanie doing all pastoral transitions, Kathy doing all oversight and authorization or committee on ministries type of work, and Terrell doing PI or program innovation and events. But to keep the pastoral care responsibilities along association boundaries for the time being. So in this year, we will do, as we settle into these new jobs, this discernment continues on how we're going to look at the best way to allocate our ACM resources to provide the best level of pastoral care to our churches and clergy. We don't feel like we've quite settled on just the right way, and didn't want to do too much change all at once. So we're settling into the first half, and then in the last half of the year, we'll be looking at what's next for how we might best provide pastoral care for our churches and clergy. On the office support staff side, we are working on getting Expensify, which will be our expense tracking system, up and running, and Realm, which is going to record all of our donations. All of our income will come in through Realm, and it will track all of our churches and pastors and volunteers, and we're still doing data cleanup on that. I have a stack of things today. I'm putting church numbers in. The system did not, so I have a big pile of papers here. I'm going church by church and making sure that their yearbook numbers are input in Realm, and that updating a couple other little pieces of information just in the ongoing cleanup effort of our data. ACS Realm so Realm is an ACS product, and ACS Financials is another ACS product, because Realm, although Realm has a financials module in it, it wasn't robust to cover all of the things that we needed to do. And so we went with the ACS Financials, and are still in the process of building that out, building out a new chart of accounts, which council will be hopefully approving at their March meeting, which is about a quarter of the size, quarter to a third of the size of our former chart of accounts. So we're really optimistic that it's really going to be able to help us out, smooth things out. But the further we get into the year, the more double entries we have to do. But we don't yet have end of the year numbers, or which means we don't have first of the year numbers to have a starting point either. So there's so many moving pieces that it isn't on any individual for why we don't have this done yet. We are making progress, and it is coming along, and I'm really excited about what it's going to allow us to do. You know, I think those might be the primary things that I think of about the things that are going on in the conference, I want to allow Tracy to talk a little bit, because Outdoor Ministries has put together some really great resources to support a Camp Sunday. So these are resources to use in your worship service. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to introduce it and to maybe share a little bit of those resources.
Sounds good. So we have created our program subcommittee of Outdoor Ministries, work together. Matt Mimlitz wrote the liturgy. Mitch has pictures from Pilgrim Park. We gathered our pictures from Tower Hill to kind of put together some lovely graphics for you. And so we're working to get those out to congregations by the beginning of March. And we'll have them as print materials. So your pastor or your worship team could just kind of pick and choose pieces of the liturgy to use in print. We're going to be sending out a PowerPoint presentation. So for those congregations that are using some electronic video kinds of things, you could use the PowerPoint. And then we have a movie that we made. Molly has a dear friend who is also a friend of mine who sang a beautiful song, Many Gifts, One Spirit of Love. And I've loved this song for many years. So we used that. Andra gave us permission to use it. And we put that together with pictures of both camps to give people a sense of what's been happening at camp and what can happen at camp, and to kind of inspire you to think about how your own local congregations can be a part of Outdoor Ministries. So how about if I share the video and hopefully get you all excited and sort of reminiscing about your time at camp. So let's see, share screen, right?
Yep.
Share sound.
Yep.
Here we go.
It's good.
Sharing. Okay. Here we go.
Many are the wonders of God, many doors open wide, many roads that are still untraveled.
Many are the gifts that we share, many burdens we bear, many mysteries still unraveled. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love. Some will be the teachers of life, some the preachers of love, some the fathers and some the mothers. Some will be the ones who will care, some will listen and share, serving God as they serve each other. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love.
Living as the body of Christ, and the heart of the earth, and the hands that will break new ground.
Celebrate the gifts from within. Now it's time to begin. God's people turn this world around now. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love. Many gifts, one spirit of love, one spirit of love.
so that's kind of what we have put together for you, and hope that there'll be some piece of what we send out, whether you want to use the whole service or if you want to use pieces of it. We're just looking forward to seeing how you all might find ways to share this with your congregations. Do you have questions about it?
Registration is open already, is that right?
Registrations are open, and we have, I think between the two camps, Mitch, have you looked lately? I think we probably have 40 some kids already registered for summer camp. So it's coming along.
Are you also needing staff?
Yes. I just posted today, and I saw Stephanie, I think you shared also. We are just kind of starting to look at summer staff, hiring summer staff. So if you know of young adults, roughly 18 to 25-year-olds who are looking for an opportunity to make a difference in the world, we have positions for them at both camps. We also have opportunities for volunteers. Mitch can talk about what he needs at Pilgrim Park. At Tower Hill, during the month of July, we're hoping to get at least 2 volunteers every week to help us in our dining hall. So if that's something, if you've always wanted to serve food to young campers, please give us a call. How about you, Mitch?
For us, again, we're looking at around the same age group, serve some awesome food as part of the compensation, live on site, looking for some strong swimmers for lifeguarding and such, all around people. If you know someone with a strong back, there's a lot of moving water coolers and loading firewood and stuff like that. So best summer job a kid could ask for. So yeah, send anybody our way, because I know we're looking for 4 to 5, we'll call them college level students. And Tower Hill's probably looking near the same. So
yeah, and we'll do training for young people. They'll do CPR, first aid type of training, archery instruction, low ropes instruction,
food service training that carries through both states, so they can take that away. Yeah.
So what we've been kind of telling people is, if you know a young person that is kind of thinking about a job in teaching, in social work, in outdoor recreation, of course, in ministry, this is a really wonderful way for them to kind of have a little bit of a taste of those kinds of positions, while at the same time still there being plenty of time for them to have fun also.
And says if you know any student nurses working on their degree, we're looking for health officers with somebody that has, we'll call it limited training to start off with, overseen by an actual registered nurse here at Pilgrim Park. Looks great on credentials. Has to be over 21 years old though for that position. So
and we've talked about, we want to really encourage young people of color. We want to really encourage anybody from the LGBTQ plus community, because we want our camp staff to look like our campers and our guests. And so we really encourage people in any of those kind of historically underrepresented groups to know that they are welcomed, cherished, and that we would love to have them on staff here.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully you can get some referrals. Mitch, I want to invite you.
And one last plug.
Yeah.
And I know my internet's coming and going, but we have a handful, if not less, of praycations left for our clergy. So if you're interested, get a hold of us. So
Yeah, we have 4 left. So if you have not reserved yours yet, give us a call.
If they don't get all used up, I'll take the last one. But you all need to go. I've had my praycation, so I don't really, I don't know, I could qualify for another one to use up, but I don't need to be first in line. I've already done it, and I highly recommend it to all of you. But Mitch, I wanted to pass it to you. Hoped you might tell some of the recent good financial news out at Pilgrim Park.
So some of you probably heard this in other meetings and such, but we have been very, very blessed and are going to be receiving a very substantial contribution, not just to Pilgrim Park, but also for the outdoor ministries of $250,000. With a majority of the chunk going into a solar program at Pilgrim Park. That's going to cut a lot of our utility expenses and such. And then upgrading of the camp, well, replacing of the camp truck. You can't really say upgrading because really I could push a wheelbarrow and it would probably be better than the truck. Then with all the rest of the proceeds going into an account to be shared between the 2 camps for unexpected expenditures or deficits or whatnot. This has fell in our lap, and we are very, very, very excited to start spending money that is actually money. So.
Corollary piece of the story that that comes with it is this gift is made in honor of Dave Franzen, who's a longtime volunteer particularly at Pilgrim Park, and a longtime friend of outdoor ministries in the Illinois Conference. And in honor of him, we will be naming the conference center, the Dave Franzen Conference Center at Pilgrim Park. And so you can await that signage and nomenclature as well. Really.
And also the family's approaching the rest of the contribution that's going to be put into an account as a matching account to challenge people to match the rest of the funds. So that's also exciting because it could produce even more for the outdoor ministry system.
Thank you. I knew there was another piece of big news that wasn't coming to mind. Well, I want to open it up and invite questions or comments or curiosities from the gallery. What would you like to know more about?
I think Regina has did Regina have her hand up?
I did not see it go up. Well, you feel free when you come up with a question, raise your hand, wave at me, raise your hand with the thing. It makes it show up. You show up in my top left corner of my Zoom too if you use under the reactions button. Last week, I think it was last week, I sent out a pastoral letter in response to questions that were coming to me about what do we do and how do we handle these conversations with Governor Pritzker changing the mask mandate, and how do we have these conversations in our church? And is the conference going to, meaning, is the conference minister going to tell us what we need to do? And I hope I managed to say I would like to do that, and I can't do that because we're the United Church of Christ, but here are some things maybe to think about. But I'm curious, how are those conversations going in your churches about masking, not masking, COVID protocols? Like, what are the, I guess I'm kind of curious, what are the questions that are being raised in your setting, and or any pushback or decisions? I mean, how's it going? Carol?
The council decided as of March 1st to make masks not mandatory. And so after that announcement, then I decided I was going to read your letter, because I'm pretty sure if I handed it out, nobody would read anything. And so it was, I think, well received, but I knew that way, both because we were live streaming and we had people in person, they would hear your thoughts, which I thought was very diplomatic, looking at, the fact that everybody's all over the place. The one thing I think we all agree on, no matter what, whether you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask, none of us like wearing them. We do have a point of agreement, which I think we forget. So anyhow, I wanted to make sure at least the people at our place heard it. And I'm not lifting the fact that I have pews with red ribbon. The ribbon still stays there.
Thanks, Carol. How's the conversation going where in other churches? Ken?
In last night's council meeting, we did a mask update and basically said that if you are vaccinated, the mask will be optional, but we are going to require masks for unvaccinated people. And everybody seemed to sign on to that. So I look forward to, there was a lot of pushback on the mask, but everybody seemed to jump in and say, yes, we can live with this. So that's where we're going.
Thank you. David?
Our council meeting is Monday, and this is going to be on the agenda. So I'm happy to hear those two results. Other locations. Helpful.
Thank you. John?
Acknowledging that Avon, Illinois, out in the wild, wild west is a very different environment. Masks have been optional here for probably close to a year.
Jesus.
Never have been required other than to get to your spot. And that has made us an outlier because we are the strict ones in the area. I have to be very honest. We get looked down for being too strict. That's I haven't seen a mask in a public place other than maybe sometimes the schools, maybe, for probably 9 months. It's just the reality of the setting.
Yeah, I will echo that. I mean, it's the same out. It's the same out in my neck of the woods in the wild, wild west. I mean, the schools actually for basketball games have signs posted that to enter the building, a mask is required. And the last basketball game I went to, my wife and I and 2 EMT personnel were the only one in the building that had masks on.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John. think it's helpful to remember that we have a significant variety of experiences across the life of our conference. Anyone else willing to say how things are going in their congregation? Roger?
Yeah, and just thinking about the fact that our council meeting took place just prior to the governor's announcement. So it was not an impact in our conversation, but the tendency at Trinity Deerfield has been to stay with masks. What we've discovered is that as this has progressed through time, our attendance on Sundays live has been dwindling in the last month or two. And we're not quite sure why. We're doing a hybrid kind of service. So I think now the question will come up about perhaps making it an option, which it has not been.
Thanks for sharing. Well, I know it's a touchy conversation in a lot of settings, and the reality is every church has to do the careful discernment on what the best option is in their setting. And I know that these are difficult conversations. In some settings, they're really difficult. Some settings are like, okay, we all just agree, and they're not controversial. So just want to share that I hold you all in prayer. The MLT, as we meet on Mondays, we always spend a significant portion of time lifting up prayers, and we pray for our churches, and we pray for the discernment around masking and around COVID procedures, and we pray for the stress that all caring professionals are dealing with. We know that there's a very, very high rate of retirement and resignations among church folks, and it's even higher among church professionals. It's even higher among social workers and therapists, and medical professionals. All caring professions are this is just a hard season. It's demanding in ways that are not so obvious on the surface. It comes underneath the skin and into the spirit, and it's just a hard time. So I just want to reiterate that we spend a significant amount of time in prayer for all of you, for all of our churches. Other questions or thoughts, or what can I tell you about?
I was just going to throw this at the camp, and that is, I don't know what to do or how to do it, but I know the churches down in my area have long since given up on the camps because of logistics. And possibly if the camps could organize with a church that has a bus or something like that to do a trip from the bus, so churches could send children to camps but not have to drive. I think the last time I drove to Pilgrim Heights, it was a 2.5, 3-hour drive both ways. So if they could get a bus down in this area, maybe from a church in the area that has one, that would meet at a location which is like a half hour to an hour from people, that they might get a few more people from down in here.
Thanks. That's a really good idea to hand off to our folks.
Who was that speaking, Molly?
That's Mark Binder.
From what church?
Bethlehem and Sutter. Am I saying that right, Mark?
Yep, I just muted myself, but yeah.
I've heard it announced enough time. I'm told that the other way that you describe it is the hardest church in the conference to find.
Yep. I was 20 minutes late to my interview because I couldn't find the place.
Oh, my goodness.
And I lived 10 miles away from it at the time.
You could walk it almost.
Yeah, but I think I put on 35 miles in that 10-mile drive. So no.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Glad you found it. Glad they found you. All right, so I'll pass that on to Tracy and Mitch. I know you're taking notes, and we'll bring that to and consider that with outdoor ministry. So thank you for that, Mark. Next week is Ash Wednesday.
I'm just going to throw in what had been happening down here, though we still kind of do it, and I'm uncomfortable with it. They had kind of been renting a small camp area, the groups of churches, but most have withdrawn because it was discovered that there wasn't adequate insurance and some questionable things had happened, which made people nervous around not adequate insurance. So the structure that had been being used just about to the time I got here disappeared.
Well, that's a conversation worth reopening and looking at now that we're exercising our first year with post pandemic, or like since the beginning of the pandemic. I don't even want to call it post pandemic, but our first year offering youth camp since the pandemic began. Maybe it's time to reopen that conversation and take a look at it. So next week is Ash Wednesday, March the 2nd. And so we will not be having an all conference chat in honor of the holiday. We will start up the next week, and is it Terrell? Are you up the week after? Ah, yes. We get to hear about what does an ACM for pie do besides eat well, right? We can have pecan pie, blueberry pie, pizza pie, all the pies. And Tara will tell us all about what that is looking like. A brief announcement. Happy birthday to Stephanie next Wednesday as her birthday comes up. Note in the chat that Tracy actually has an even better video that's coming out. And to let you also know that Bill Regal, who's the secretary for the conference council, has announced his retirement, and with his retirement, a relocation out of conference, and so has submitted his resignation as conference secretary. So we have so appreciated Bill's contributions and his willingness to serve in that way. Eric Quinney Bernard will be thrilled to hear that his work as nominating chair will be reactivated. So if any of you have any recommendations for a conference corporate secretary, we would be happy to receive those recommendations. We'll turn them over to Eric for vetting and for conversation. So we welcome those candidates, and I encourage you all to offer your best wishes to Bill as he embarks on this next phase of life, and we will miss him in the Illinois conference for sure. Anyone else have any closing announcements you'd like to share, thoughts you'd like to share, or questions you'd like to raise? Well, I will wish you a blessed last week of common time prior to Lent. May you have a wonderful week. Be safe. I know we've got a lot of weather things happening in our state, snow, rain, ice, and everything in between. So be safe and have a good week. Thank you so much for coming out. We will see you soon.